Weird angle. I lost the fucking phone tripod holder. No, the tripod phone holder. That's it. And yeah, my PC's fucked, so I hope you like this angle. So let's just get into business. Article 13. It's not in legislation yet. They just were having a vote for like all of the amendments and shit. The final vote will be in January 2019, and I don't really think that I need to explain why it's bad because everyone has talked about it, and the people within my social circles, well, they are going to be notified about this shit because they either use it for reviews or they like to get fan art of random crap, well, random copyrighted character crap. And yeah, just stuff like this. Well, stuff like that, really. Like, I mean, YouTube is definitely not going to change from this. Alright, no, link tax. Alright, let's talk about how it's disastrous as opposed to really fucking annoying, like, I don't know, 2014 YouTube copyright. Like, I think it reached, like, yeah, it hit, like, the edge of it with, like, the whole Where's the Fair Use campaign in, like, 2015, 2016. Time fucking flies, man. But, yeah, it's just, like, it's really fucked. No, I need to get my words together for this, because even though, like, I mean, I was planning on, like, bringing up, like, politics within its own sort of video. I was going to, like, after the Sonic Cannon Theory one, I was going to make 2 videos, one about actual politics and one about social politics, because I think that those two have become so intertwined that it's fucking dangerous at this point. But again, I'll save that for its own video because I would actually like to have some edited content which is worth watching. Though, of course, edited stuff is more likely to attract new viewers since I'm doing it. It's a shame that the first one fucking failed. No, but seriously though. The idea of link tax, it is quite ridiculous in itself. Like, you know, if something breaks copyright, well, infringes copyright, it's just going to get taken down. But if it's within, like, a fair use exception or fair dealings or whatever the fuck your country uses, then it's diversified itself to not impede on the original audience. Like, that's one part which people always forget about fair use. The fact that it has to be transformative work and cannot act as a replacement for the original product. But yeah, other than that, it's just like, you know, the link tax is a ludicrous concept in itself because there are already punishment systems for copyright infringement, and there are laws which say that you are allowed to use shit without permission in certain cases. I guess you could say, oh yeah, you know, it's an extension to fair use. Like, you know, you're paying the original person, the original company, in order to gain the rights to use that product, which would be fine if that wasn't already a thing. like, companies license out their copyrights and trademarks to other companies all the fucking time. They give them to individuals, like movie directors story writers for movies, or they give them to like video game publishers in order to pay people to model this copyrighted character. It's ludicrous in itself. And the additional thing is that it's supposed to be enforced by a bot. Now, Google is like the master of fucking bots. Like, if you've looked into some of their DeepMind shit, that's just insane. But for something like dissecting copyright, like, we all know that the DMCA bot does not account for fair use. Like, it doesn't, though that's more because Google has never actually tried to make it think about fair use. It's just like, if you see this in the video, just take it down. I think that that's a really big fucking design flaw. But even then, like, Twitter bots, for example, they cannot reliably detect whether or not someone's a bot. Like my previous accounts got marked as bots. Meanwhile, the year progression bar, which is literally just a Twitter feed uploading like 100 pictures in 1 year, and they're all like very slight variations, just adding 1% onto a progress bar every year. Oh yeah, that's totally not a fucking bot. Like, algorithms aren't at the point where they should be yet. And they probably will never get to such a point, because there's like a Tom Scott video talking about like AIs or whatever. Like, yeah, it's about filtering algorithms and that, like he talks about like filtering out words, and then people start finding alternatives to it. It's already happening in China and whatever. And yeah, I think, and the finishing point is like, if you have something that can detect, that can take into account all sorts of contexts and whatever, then what you have there is more than just an algorithm. Because, us humans cannot even decipher other people's context a lot of the time, especially if you're socially awkward, or you have like some sort of problem or whatever. Not really a point, but it's like, if we can't even dissect whether or not something is fair use or isn't fair use, or is copyright infringement, or is just a false flag claim, then yeah, how can we expect the machine to do it if machines aren't even at a human level yet? Like, I do understand that, you would need an algorithm to do it because it's unfeasible to do it. But the concept itself is so retarded that it shouldn't even be attempted, because there's already copyright exception laws out there which define whether or not you're allowed to use something or not. And yeah, and then of course there's just the entire vote that they had for all of the amendments and shit, and it's passed with pretty much fuck all changes to itself. It's going to be able to supersede the country's own laws, which, that's what I fucking love about the EU. Not gonna get into it, because, like, I mean, hating the EU is a primarily right-wing trait, while, like, I do think that the EU overall is a good thing. They have some major problems, which make me kind of glad that we try to left, though we're not going to because of the problem with our own government. Like, yeah, despite all of the online backlash to it, people, there being entire websites designed to basically for entire websites to be designed to give you the phone numbers of the MPs who will be voting in it for you to call them and tell them no. And with people like fucking PewDiePie to just random artists on Twitter all saying the same thing, stop this is going to destroy careers. And even Google themselves have put out a statement, the leader of the fucking thing. I mean, I do understand that, you know, the leader of an industry, you know, a mega corporation like Google isn't exactly going to be too good to listen to because they'll have their own motives for shit. But when it's independent creators who are in the middle class for most part, maybe even slightly lower, then yeah. I mean, we all know about those artists who just do commissions every so often because they need a couple extra dollars in order to get by. Like, it happens all of the time. And then imagine how disastrous it would be for making them pay a tax on their own pictures when all of the payments have already been done and they're commissioning a specific person and not responsible for doing it. It's kind of complicated. I mean, if you advertise the fact that you can draw Sonic, yeah, it does make sense why you would have to give royalties to Sega. But on the other hand, it's like you're drawing people's original characters. And that's kind of where the grey area is. It's not that, well, it is that bots aren't even at the level where they need to be. It's that the laws themselves are not where they need to be. Like, you know, with fair use as an example, it's literally just a guideline. It's like, oh yeah, make sure that it's mostly your work, minority of the original, make it your own thing and add some commentary onto the original. Alright, Hee Case comes around, shows most of the original video, and quite a lot of it is like just the snippets themselves with short intervals of satire in there, like actual fucking satire, not leafy satire, if anyone even still associates leafy with full satire nowadays. And the internet's changed a lot. And yeah, he ended up winning because of just one of the factors. Two of the factors. It was it added a lot of commentary, and it didn't impede on the original audience because it was an entirely different style of entertainment. So because of that, it's like something that can be considered fair use when it breaks half of the rules of fair use, which is very dangerous. Like, I mean, fair use and even fair dealings. Like, I mean, I made an entire video about why fair dealings is better, but even that isn't up to snuff because it's all just guidelines. Nobody knows when they're crossing the line. And that is very fucking dangerous. And then to put that sort of power into a bot's hand, that's extremely dangerous. And then, of course, with the whole thing, even with all of the controversy, they still voted in favour of it because they know that they're not really in danger. Like, I mean, for England, for example, I'm just saying England because it's the system I know. There's like a local vote to decide your local MP, and then that MP is a part of a party, and then the party that gets the most MPs into office in total gets their prime minister. But the thing is, that's a really terrible system in itself because you know, while it is good that, you know, the prime minister or president or, you know, whatever fancy word you want to say, also, you know, minister is like a Christian word to describe like a priest or a church worker. So, you know, it's quite interesting. Quite a lot of Catholic or Protestant. No, it would be Protestant because, like, we don't have fucking baby mutilation in England, or at least not to the degree. Like, I mean, slight tangent, but why are so many people that I meet online fucking circumcised? I literally had an online friend ask me if I was circumcised. Like, why? It's such a paradox to me. Of course, it's more of a paradox to me because I was raised on the Protestant version of Christianity as opposed to the Catholic version, which is very stringent on staying true to the original writing of the Bible. Hence, they've had like a lot more involvement with keeping gay rights at bay and shit like that. Like, you know, you hear a lot more about the Catholic Church trying to stop gay rights than you do about the Church of England stopping people in the UK. Of course, that's because the Catholic Church has a lot more reach, so not really a fair comparison, but like, Catholic is a lot bigger, so like, what do you expect really? But yeah, that tangent over. Let's talk about why the system is flawed in itself. So, in England, you have two choices. You can either vote for the MP that you want to go into a room where their vote is only like less than 100th of any sort of power, or you can vote for the party, and then, you know, the party which gets the prime minister is just about guaranteed to have majority power, like be able to just pass shit willy-nilly because it's a two-party system. It's a winner takes all. It's always going to be Labour and then whichever side of the left or right, which is currently cool at the moment, and, you know, Europe is very left-wing at the moment. So, yeah, it's literally just the Labour Party and the left-wing party fighting it out. So, and then of course, because like a lot of patriotism and then the whole campaign about, oh yeah, £10 minimum wage. So then they get a lot of people voting on them without spilling a lot of details. Like, yeah, you know, it's a lot harder to win with like 50% than it is to win. Well, it's a lot harder to win with like under 50% because, like, you know, how the votes work is if half of the people agree to it, it wins. If half of the people disagree, it loses. So having the winning party get the prime minister, which will suggest most of the laws in the first place and be in charge of most of the policies, their stuff gets a lot less opposed as opposed to like the president of the United States. Like, I mean, Obamacare got heavily nerfed. Okay, it got heavily handicapped by the fucking system. Like, he wanted to have like an NHS type healthcare system. Meanwhile, what wound up happening is just it became legally mandatory in order to have insurance or else you get fees. And because it's legally mandatory, it made it so, you know, it's easier to get a hold of because like, you know, instead of it being like, oh yeah, all of you have to get a really expensive life insurance policy now, it's like, hey, these people are going to get fined anyway, so let's just offer them very shitty health insurance with a lot of prepaid shit, so, you know, they have to break an arm and a leg in order to even get our benefits, and then, you know, just take their money just as long as we're below the fee that they would get anyways. You know, that's a quick buck. I fucking hate the American system. But of course, with England, that the voting system making it, you know, two-party system is inherently flawed in itself. But then you couple that with the House of Commons and the House of Lords having pretty equal power. Like, I mean, they send shit back and forth. I think the House of Commons has final say, but they are able to block quite a lot of shit, and that's quite dangerous because they are all unelected officials. They are all like dukes and whatever. Like, you know, they would basically be like the dukes of the old centuries, you know, just like back in the time of kings. These people would be in charge of each of the individual cities or towns or villages, you know, stuff like that. And then they would be considered equal to royalty in that regard, but then of course they would still have to like pay the state all of that money and shit. But yeah, now of course that is a pretty terrible system, just winner takes all system leading to like, you know, it's a victor gets their person in power, and and for it to be not a fucking partial dictatorship, I'm exaggerating slightly, but I'm also not. It's like they would have to win with less than 50%, which if we all know how voting works, yeah, no, that's not gonna fucking happen in a two-party system. Because the MPs are just count towards a party, and voting for individuals who you want is basically political suicide. But then, of course, there's the fucking EU itself, which can supersede a country's own laws, and also its voting. It has like 3 branches, only one of which is full of elected officials. And they can only like suggest laws or whatever. They don't have final say. They can bring up a complaint or whatever. I'm not an expert. This is just baseline knowledge. But yeah, it's more of like a bureaucracy where all of the laws and crap are actually just done inside of like an unelected thing. And then, you know, even if it was like fully elected, it's still doing the stupid by region winners of the popular vote, which is, again, you don't have to, instead of being like, oh yeah, there's like this amount of people in that one, let's just get the MPs of the most this party voters from these areas, and then you know, just equalize the rest so people get quite equal representation. Instead it's just people voting for the party that they want in, as opposed to the MPs which they want in, which means that a lot of clash is going to be, and you know, we all know how fucking manipulative things can get. I mean, there's a lot more laws in England about what you're allowed to broadcast and whatever, and how much budget you're allowed, but that still doesn't change the baseline problems with the system. Like, my problem with the way that our democracy is set up is that it's not a real democracy. If it was a real democracy, there wouldn't be the House of Lords. The Prime Minister wouldn't have private chats with actual fucking royalty. And, you know, there wouldn't be a third party country coalition which would be able to supersede the country's own laws and have its own sort of elected MP and unelected officials just going in there. It's sort of disgusting to me. Now, of course, I still think that the EU is pretty good to stay in, because at least for England, a lot of our money comes in from external shit. Like, I mean, I live in a seaside town. A lot of our money comes from tourism. There's a pier with a little arcade in it, fun fair type rides, and then there was an attempt at the world's longest bench, which got overtaken in the exact same year that it was made, so it never got into the Guinness Book of World Records, which is hilarious. But also, it's like, it's just sort of ridiculous as, yeah, and then of course just 1,000,001 ice cream stalls, and then a train system where like every other train is from London Victoria, which is like the main station for like down south to get into like London, which is connected to the underground, which is like so nice. Like, I mean, it's quite quick and it's a bit weird to get used to, but you know, it's really fast paced. You're not like waiting around for fucking everything, and it's actually quite amazing to see how much they fucking dug out. Like, it's actually quite impressive to look at. I'm not normally a scenic person, hence I'm gushing over a fucking underground instead of actual fucking scenery. But you know, it's quite impressive for self. But yeah, that's a semi tangent. A lot of England's money comes from outside. London is a tourist hub. The seasides is a tourist hub, and a lot of programming is also gets sent overseas. It's quite dumb that people feel the way they do, but I also don't blame them, because, you know, even though globalization has brought a lot of good things, pretty much all of my friends are online at this point, it's also quite worrying. Not worrying. It's unexpected, to say the least. It's a bit... yeah. I think that... yeah, but the main problem with the EU is the way that it's set up. Like, you know how the countries, like, ignoring how the countries get their MPs in, the MPs which get into the EU still are kind of like and the worst thing is you don't even really get to vote on who gets in, though of course it's done like in a proportional system, so I guess that's actually quite fair. But though it would be nice to be able to vote on the individual MPs within the party to represent us in the EU, but what are you gonna fucking do? Alright, complain on the internet, fair. But but yeah, I think the worst thing is this isn't a real democracy. Like, would a democracy make it so you have to fucking ring someone to beg them to vote in your direction? Or would it give you the power to directly vote on issues yourself? Like, the entire point of democracy is power to people, and yet that power is being filtered by other people, some of which aren't even elected by the people. Like, all that we do is we get to vote for the people who get into office. But the way that it's set up, is actually quite harmful to yourself to actually vote in that way. So, because of that, we end up voting for the parties. So, because they all have a lot more power. But it also gives them the leeway to say, oh yeah, you voted for us to get in, so you're fault fuckers. Yeah, I think that how shit should be set up. I think that instead of voting within their own offices in order to, you know, vote for legislation and think whatever, I think that there should be votes more often, and it would, in my opinion, make it a lot easier to start voting for shit, because instead of like voting once every 4 years, and then maybe one thing on a specific issue. Being able to vote on legislation all of the time would get people into rhythm of voting, which would make it a lot less likely for people to kind of not bother with it, and also like a lot more people just feel more involved with the system and actually want to contribute, because like, of course you want to contribute. It's just, it happens at least for me, it happens so infrequently, and the system is set up in such a fucked way. Yeah. Now, of course, there is like the argument of, if you don't think anyone deserves your votes, then just write in a blank ballot, and then, just write in their message like, I hate all of these options, fix the fucking country, pricks, or whatever. But the problem with that is, like, those votes are just going to get chucked out anyway, so they don't even contribute much. Like, I mean, if a lot of them happen in, like, one area, then that would be, like, an alarm bell situation. But, and that idea isn't going to catch on. Like, I mean, if it could catch on, then, yeah, that would definitely be a good form of protest. But people are lazy. Like, if they don't even deserve my vote, why should I waste my time? Why should I take time out of my work schedule, which would give me money to be able to live, just as to give an empty gesture, when the entire apathetic attitude that my generation has is a direct result and a glaring criticism of how bad the system is. Like it says a lot when people are fighting for the age to vote to be lowered to 16, when only old people really vote. And that is also something which kind of affects it. Like, I mean, I don't exactly want it to be like legally mandatory to vote, but it's also like, if people had to vote more often, then that would definitely encourage people to be more involved with the system that dictates their lives. Fuck Article 13. Fuck the EU's current state. I think that having something like the EU or the UN is actually a really good idea with the globalistic state of the world and how the internet is connecting all of us together. But it's like, the current way that we're doing it is inherently flawed. I don't want the EU to go away. I just want it to fix its fucking shit. Because even as like left wing or right wing, it just sucks. Like, I mean, a lot of right wing channels are complaining about this, quite rightfully so, but this ain't a left or right wing issue. It's, and when you piss off both sides on an almost universal scale, it boggles my mind why they would even vote in favour for it after all of the backlash. like, I guess they're hoping that most people don't read through the list of the people who voted for it. That's something that you can fucking do, by the way. But it's also like, by not, if they're your area MP, you're basically sacrificing your choice to vote for the party that you want just because of one dickhead. And yeah, I think the fact that voting for individuals and voting for a collective being combined has fucked it, even if there wasn't the House of Lords. But the House of Lords is just such a retarded concept. Hey, what does democracy need? Fucking pseudo fucking communism? No, not communism. Dictatorship, that's the word. A pseudo dictatorship. The elected prime minister of the country. Oh yeah, let's just have a cup of tea in the Queen in our private quarters. We're totally not gonna tell them about shit. And they're totally not going to say, oh yeah, can you please suggest this, in the same way that companies can pay MPs to vote in favour of certain things or pay them to push certain legislations. We all know about lobbying. Even with this is clearly lobbying from, the label companies, because they're realising that with all of the avenues that shit can be posted online, not every site has a system like YouTube, and they're so used to being able to abuse it like YouTube, and they're like, oh yeah, there is a genuine reason for it, look, they're re-uploading all of our songs. But they don't tell them about about all of the false claims which have fucked people over time and time again. And that's also why I think that shit should be in a public vote as opposed to voted for by MPs, because lobbying exists. You can't really lobby a general population. You can't exactly go, hey, everyone who votes for this thing gets £1,000. You can't do that because the votes are private. And all that you can do is feed them misinformation and hide some crucial details. But because it'd be a public thing, the moment that someone actually reads through it and then starts posting about it, people get informed. The problem with democracy is that it's not democratic enough. MPs should only have the power to do stuff which do negotiations or whatever, because while the public should be able to have a say in what happens within the country, it's just unfeasible for to get the entire population of Texas to be able to negotiate with Canada over some random bullshit no one cares about. That's impractical. So MPs do have a right to exist. They're just given way more power than they should reasonably be given, and the system that puts them into power is inherently flawed to a dangerous degree, as we've seen with this situation. Where people are terrified of this shit, because we've all heard about, oh yeah, it's going to affect you even if it if you don't live in this country. And that's right, because the internet is a global thing. And this is why I think the only political thing at all that should have any sort of power over the internet, if at all, is the UN, the United Nations, because it's a global directive thing. It's a global political group that it has influence from all of the participating countries in the world. And the internet connects people from entirely different nations, entirely different continents, entirely different systems. Like, China has its own internet, and North Korea has just banned internet all outright. But, like, Russia has internet, America has internet, India has internet, fucking Europe has internet, Australia has internet. The internet stretches beyond Europe's borders. So Europe shouldn't get a say in how it's run. No, Europe should get a say in how it's run, but it shouldn't have the only say. America should be able to step in and say, this is global, fuck off. Australians should be able to come in and say, no, we use the internet, you're not messing with how it works. India should be able to come in and say, no, fuck off. But because countries are able to just dictate how things are run within their borders, and websites are lazy and just implement it all over the world, hence a lot of American accounts with the new privacy policy that the EU put in place. Twitter just disabled thousands of American Twitter accounts made when someone was below 13 because they just went, well, it's a thing here, so we might as well. And yeah, like Twitter is a good example of how one country's laws can affect the entire world. And that's honestly scary. One country, one nation, one continent shouldn't have the power to control the world. Like, unless they go all fucking Spartan and conquer the fucking world. Not Spartans, fucking Romans. Stupid land. Unless they go all Roman and take over the fucking world, the world isn't theirs to mess with. 15-minute rant. I'm gonna upload this as I fucking sleep, if it hasn't corrupted the recording because it's so long. Yeah.